The message came at 3 in the morning, Earth Standard Time. Captain Jake Morrison was asleep in his quarters aboard the ESV Guardian, a heavy cruiser orbiting the mining colony of Reese 4. He had always been a light sleeper. War veterans rarely slept deeply. But when the piercing alarm from the communication panel cut through the silence, his eyes snapped open. A red light pulsed in the darkness. Emergency signal, encrypted, outer rim origin. Jake rubbed his face, pushed himself upright, and shuffled barefoot across the small cabin. Emergency signals from the edge of known space never carried good news. His hand hovered over the decode switch. He braced himself. The screen flickered, static hissed, then an image formed. It was Commander Lisa Wang. Jake froze. They'd gone through the academy together, survived war together, and argued 1,000 times about everything from politics to which drink was better after a bad patrol. 15 years of friendship had carved deep trust between them, but the face on the screen was not the Lisa he remembered. She looked exhausted. Dark rings circled her eyes. Worry lines cut into her forehead. She stared into the camera with a mixture of desperation and resolve. "Jake," her voice trembled, recorded but urgent. "I need your help." The words hit him like a physical blow. She took a deep breath and continued. "Something terrible is happening out here. The Coalition, our so-called guardians of peace, are throwing away entire species like garbage. Families, children, elders, they're being forced out of Coalition space with nowhere to go. I've been trying to help, but I can't do it alone. If Earth doesn't act, thousands will die." Jake frowned, heart sinking. The Galactic Coalition controlled most of the known galaxy. Earth had joined them 50 years ago, seduced by promises of peace, prosperity, and protection. But Lisa's words painted a different picture. "3 species have already been exiled completely," she said, her tone breaking. "They call them genetically inferior or culturally incompatible. That's just a polite way of saying we don't want you anymore." The first file opened automatically beside her image. Jake stared at the image of the Zelani. They looked like aquatic dolphins, sleek and graceful, but capable of walking on land with mechanical support frames strapped to their torsos. Their skin shimmered with shades of green and blue, glistening like wet stone. According to the file, the Zelani had refused to send soldiers for the Coalition's endless expansion wars. Pacifists, believers in peace. For that, they had been branded as cowards and given 30 days to leave every Coalition world. Lisa's voice grew harder. "The second species, the Karathi, walking crystals, brilliant engineers. Their technology is centuries ahead of most Coalition races, too far ahead maybe. They made the others look primitive, and instead of learning from them, the Coalition declared them arrogant, accused them of technological hoarding, and forced them into exile." The files shifted again. Jake's chest tightened. The third species, the Vexi. Almost human in appearance, pale-skinned with luminous, gentle eyes. They had one gift that made them invaluable and dangerous. They could feel emotions, sense lies, corruption, cruelty. They had been healers, counselors, mediators. But when their diplomats exposed corruption within the Coalition's highest ranks, they were declared psychic spies and banished. Jake swallowed hard. Lisa's voice cracked. "These refugees are stranded at the edge of space. Their ships are breaking apart. They don't have enough food or water or medicine. Children are dying, Jake. The Coalition has ordered every member world to turn them away. If Earth doesn't help," she hesitated, then whispered, "they'll be extinct within months." Jake felt his stomach twist. He imagined his own daughter, Amy, back on Earth, asleep in her safe, warm bed. Then he imagined her starving in the cold black of space while every world turned its back. The thought sickened him. Lisa leaned closer to the recorder. "I've sent you the coordinates. You still have friends in high places, Admiral Carter, maybe even the President. Use your influence, please. You're the only one I trust to listen." The screen went black. Jake sat motionless for a long time. The silence pressed in around him. Finally, he exhaled slowly, grabbed his uniform, and pulled it on. This wasn't something he could ignore. By 4 in the morning, Admiral Ben Carter looked like thunder. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his 60s, hair gone silver from decades of war. When Jake walked into his office, Carter's expression was sharp with irritation at being dragged from bed. But when Jake showed him Lisa's files, the Admiral's anger cooled into something colder, something that looked like grief. He watched the footage without speaking. Zelani families crammed into failing cargo ships, their moist skin cracking from dehydration. Karathi children with dimming crystals, fractures spreading across their glowing bodies. Vexi mothers holding sick infants, trying to project calm emotions so their bobbies wouldn't drown in fear. "How many ships?" Carter finally asked. 47 confirmed, Jake said, more arriving every day. Carter stood at the window, looking out over Earth's orbital defense platforms. Beyond them, the curve of the blue planet glowed against the black. For 50 years, humanity had walked carefully among giants, grateful for coalition protection. Helping these exiles would be seen as betrayal. "The coalition won't like this," Carter muttered. "If we bring them here, we risk trade sanctions, retaliation, maybe even war." Jake stepped forward. "With respect, sir, look at these children. They're dying. Do we stand for something or don't we?" Carter's jaw clenched. He was silent for a long time, then slowly he nodded. "Contact Lisa," he said. "Tell her to start moving them toward Earth space immediately." Jake felt relief wash through him, but Carter's voice turned grim. "Don't thank me yet, Captain. This choice might doom us all." Hours later, supply ships were already being loaded. Earth's defense fleet changed course, moving toward the refugee gathering point. And deep in the capital, the first political battles had begun. Some argued Earth must turn the refugees away before the coalition discovered what they were doing. Others shouted that helping them was humanity's moral duty. But Jake knew one thing for certain: Earth had already crossed the line. The galaxy's unwanted were on their way. And nothing would ever be the same. The summons came quickly. President Nancy Rodriguez stood in the Great Council chamber of Earth's capital city, New Geneva, staring at the holodisplay hovering over the marble floor. Red dots pulsed across the solar system, each marking an incoming refugee vessel. 47 ships had already grown to 63 in just 2 days. More arrived every hour, slipping in from the edge of coalition space, limping on damaged engines, overloaded with starving families. The air in the chamber was tense. Senators filled the curved seats, their voices rising in angry debate. "Risking our colonies," Senator Charles Webb thundered. His face was red, his fists clenched. "Do you have any idea what the coalition will do if we harbor these aliens? Trade embargoes, military retaliation, maybe even open war, all for people who aren't even human." His words drew nods from several senators, their faces twisted with fear. On the other side of the chamber, Senator Lisa Park rose to speak. Her voice was calm but resolute. "With respect, these aren't criminals. They're families, scientists, healers. The Zelani were cast out for refusing to fight wars of conquest. The Karathi were exiled for being too advanced. The Vexi were banished for speaking truth to power. If Earth turns them away, then we are no better than the coalition we claim to admire." The debate raged. Voices clashed. The president listened in silence, her dark eyes thoughtful, her jaw tight. Then the doors opened. The coalition ambassador had arrived. Ambassador Tekmer was impossible to ignore. His insectoid body towered 7 feet tall. 4 muscular arms flexed at his sides, each ending in clawed fingers sharp enough to cut steel. His compound eyes glistened like black jewels, reflecting the chamber lights. Every step of his armored legs clicked against the floor, echoing like the March of Doom. He moved to the center of the chamber, bowed stiffly, and spoke through his translator. His voice was mechanical, yet carried venom. "President Rodriguez, Senators of Earth, the coalition is aware of your fleet's movements toward the exiled." The chamber went deathly still. "You will cease this activity immediately," Tekmer continued, mandibles twitching in irritation. "Earth is in violation of its membership agreements. The exiled species you attempt to aid were removed from coalition space for the safety and stability of all members. By offering them sanctuary, you threaten that stability." President Rodriguez's voice was steady. "Ambassador, our vessels are providing humanitarian aid. That is not against any law." Tekmer's compound eyes fixed on her, unblinking. "Humanitarian aid is irrelevant. These are not refugees. They are genetic and cultural contaminants. Their offspring will spread weakness through civilized space. This cannot be permitted." A murmur of horror swept the chamber. Rodriguez's face remained calm, but her hands clenched on the podium. "You speak of children, Ambassador. What crime have they committed?" Tekmer's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The crime of birth. They inherit the flaws of their kind. They cannot be allowed to reproduce within coalition borders. Gasps rippled through the senators. Even those who had opposed the refugees' arrival shifted uneasily in their seats. Ambassador, Rodriguez pressed, her voice sharper now, what happens if Earth continues to aid them? Tekmer's answer was swift. If you persist, the coalition will enact total sanctions, trade embargo, withdrawal of military protection, and if necessary, classification of Earth as a hostile, non-aligned world, alone against a galaxy that does not forgive weakness. He paused, mandibles twitching like knives scraping together. You have 60 days to comply. The chamber erupted in shouting. Some senators cried out in panic, demanding immediate expulsion of the refugees. Others shouted that Earth must resist, that this was the proof of coalition corruption they had long suspected. But President Rodriguez remained still. Her face was carved from stone. She simply said, "Thank you, Ambassador. We will consider your words." Tekmer bowed, though the gesture felt more like mockery than respect. He turned and strode from the chamber, leaving silence in his wake. Later, in the privacy of the presidential office, Rodriguez met with her closest advisors. Admiral Ben Carter stood grimly by the window, arms folded. Dr. Maria Santos, Earth's leading xenobiologist, paced in frustration. Senator Lisa Park leaned forward, her hands trembling with suppressed anger. They called children contaminants, Lisa whispered. Children. Rodriguez nodded slowly. This isn't about crimes, it's about fear. They exile anyone who doesn't fit their mold, anyone who threatens their control. Dr. Santos slammed a data tablet onto the table. And in doing so, they're throwing away treasures. The Karatha's quantum computing is decades ahead of anything we've seen. The Zelani's genetic therapies could cure human diseases we thought untouchable. And the Vexi, do you understand what their empathic abilities could mean for treating trauma, for diplomacy, for understanding ourselves? The coalition didn't exile them for being weak. They exiled them for being too strong. The room went silent. Admiral Carter's voice was rough. So, we're not just saving lives, we're saving the galaxy's greatest minds from extinction. Rodriguez looked at each of them in turn. Then she straightened, resolve hardening in her eyes. Contact Admiral Morrison, she ordered. Tell him the refugees are welcome here, all of them. Earth will give them sanctuary. That night, President Rodriguez appeared on every broadcast across Earth and the colonies. These beings are not criminals, she declared, her voice carrying across the stars. They are survivors of persecution, scientists, healers, families. The coalition calls them inferior, we call them neighbors. From this day forward, Earth will give them refuge, protection, and a place to call home. Billions watched in silence. Some wept with pride. Others trembled in fear. But all knew the truth. There was no going back. The first refugee ship crossed into Earth's system at dawn. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESV Guardian, watching as the battered vessel limped forward on failing thrusters. The hull was scorched black, panels torn open, life support systems barely holding. It was more wrecked than ship, yet still it carried hundreds of lives. Identify vessel, Jake ordered. Zelani-class transport, the comms officer replied, her voice tight. Capacity rated for 300, scans show over 1,000 life signs aboard. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Jake's throat tightened. Open a channel. The main screen flickered. A Zelani elder appeared. His blue-green skin was cracked and gray, moisture seeping from fractures that split across his body. Tubes from the ship's failing water systems fed into a mask strapped over his face. Behind him, dozens of children huddled together, their eyes wide, their skins drying to ash. Humans, the elder rasped, please help us. For a moment, silence reigned on the bridge. Then Jake spoke, steady and calm. You're safe now. Welcome to Earth space. Within hours, the trickle became a flood. One by one, refugee ships appeared on long-range sensors. Karathi crystalline carriers glowing faintly with dimmed light, Vexi freighters filled with pale, trembling survivors, and more Zelani transports, each crammed to bursting. By the third day, 83 ships orbited near Luna Station. By the fifth, there were 127. Earth's skis were filling with the galaxy's unwanted. Dr. Maria Santos walked through the medical bays on Luna, her white coat stained with mineral dust and saltwater. Around her, chaos reigned. Human doctors struggled to adapt to alien needs with equipment never designed for them. She moved to a bed where a young Karathi child lay motionless. His crystalline body was fractured, light flickering weakly inside. Maria crouched beside him, placing a scanner against his chest. "Fracture depth 3 centimeters," she murmured. "He's starving for trace minerals. Get me iron, copper, and quartz, now." A nurse hesitated. "Doctor, those aren't in medical supply." "Then break open the construction storage," Maria snapped. "Steel beams, wiring, anything. If he doesn't absorb those minerals, he'll shatter before sunrise." The nurse ran. Maria placed her hand gently on the child's surface. The crystal glowed faintly at her touch. "You'll make it," she whispered. "I promise." Across the bay, Vexi healers moved among the human doctors, using their empathic gifts to calm the sick and terrified. A Vexi woman placed her hands on a screaming Zelani child's head, projecting waves of peace until the child's breathing slowed. For a brief moment, the entire ward felt lighter. Maria wiped her forehead. Earth was barely prepared for this, and more ships were still coming. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison met with Admiral Carter and President Rodriguez in the Luna War Room. Holo displays lit the chamber, showing fleets moving in the dark. "Coalition ships." "Lisa was right," Jake said grimly. "They're not waiting 60 days. Long-range scouts report 3 coalition task groups forming near the border. Fast cruisers, they'll be here within a week." Carter swore under his breath. "They're testing our resolve, first the refugees, then us." Rodriguez's eyes hardened. "If they want to intimidate us, it won't work. Earth has made its choice. We stand with the exiled." Jake leaned forward. "Then we need defenses ready. Our fleets are strong, but nowhere near coalition numbers. If they hit hard, we can't hold." Carter tapped a control. Another holo lit up, showing ship schematics, refugee ships modified with strange technology. "We may not have numbers," Carter said, "but we have something else, knowledge." In the days that followed, alliances were forged in the chaos of refugee camps and repair docks. Jake walked the hangars of Luna Station, where Karathi engineers worked alongside human technicians. One Karathi, his crystalline body glowing faintly with purple light, bent over a human fighter craft. He touched the hull and the ship systems flickered to life. Jake frowned. "What did you just do?" The Karathi's voice was a soft hum. "We reshaped your energy conduits. They were inefficient. Now your weapons will channel at 3 times the power without overheating." Jake blinked. "You just upgraded our fighters in 10 minutes. The Karathi's crystals shifted in what might have been a smile. 10 minutes is slow. Elsewhere, Zelani engineers grew living biografts onto damaged human ships, giving them self-repairing hulls. Vexi empaths trained Earth's officers to sense intentions in tense negotiations, sharpening their instincts in ways no computer ever could. Earth was changing fast, but not everyone welcomed it. On Earth itself, protests filled the streets. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, waving banners. "Earth first," some shouted. "No aliens on our soil." Others cried out in support. "Sanctuary for all, refugees are family." Tensions rose with every passing day. In the Senate, Senator Webb slammed his fist onto the podium. "This madness will doom us. We cannot fight the coalition. We must expel these creatures before we lose everything." Senator Park rose to answer, her voice ringing clear. "No, if we abandon them, we lose more than trade. We lose our soul. What is humanity worth if we stand by and let children die?" The chamber shook with divided voices. And above them all, the refugee fleet grew. On the 6th night, Lisa Wang finally returned. Her ship, the ESV Horizon, limped into orbit, its hull scarred from coalition attacks. Jake boarded immediately. When he saw her, he almost didn't recognize her. She looked thinner, her uniform stained, her face haunted. "Lisa," he said softly. She looked at him with tired eyes. "Jake, you don't know what's coming." "What do you mean?" She pulled up a holo showing coalition fleet movements. Thousands of ships, carriers, dreadnoughts, battle stations. "They're not just sending task groups," Lisa whispered. "They're mobilizing the core fleet, the largest force the galaxy has ever seen, and they're heading here." Jake stared in stunned silence. "How many?" he asked at last. Lisa's voice broke. 10,000. The alarms howled across Luna Station. Jake Morrison raced onto the Guardian's bridge, boots pounding against the deck. Red lights pulsed on every console, and the tactical display was a storm of incoming signals. "Report," Jake barked. The operations officer's face was pale. "Coalition Vanguard fleet, sir. 3 heavy battleships and 6 escorts. They've bypassed the outer colonies and are heading straight for Mars' orbit." Jake's stomach turned cold. Mars wasn't just a colony. It was home to New Coral City, the Zelani settlement built into the underground water reserves. 8,000 refugees had taken shelter there. Families, children, they were defenseless. "Coalition Eta," Jake demanded. 30 minutes. On Mars, Captain Amy Richards of the ESV Liberty stared at the tactical display in horror. Her small escort frigate was patrolling near the settlement when the fleet appeared. 9 enemy ships, one of her own. Her comms officer whispered, "Captain, they'll flatten us." Amy's jaw set. "Open a channel to New Coral City." The holographic image of Elder Teclon, the Zelani leader, shimmered before her. His blue-green skin was pale, his breathing heavy. "Captain Richards." "Elder, listen to me. You need to evacuate immediately. Coalition warships are inbound. They'll be here in half an hour." Teclon shook his head slowly. "We cannot move 8,000 souls so quickly. Our young cannot survive rapid transit. Our elders cannot withstand the strain." Amy's chest tightened. She looked at the display again, 1 small frigate, 9 coalition warships. It was suicide. But she thought of the children she had met in New Coral City. The little ones who laughed in bubbling pools, their voices musical. The families who had trusted Earth with their survival. She straightened. "Elder, then I'll buy you as much time as I can." On the Coalition flagship Dreadfang, War Commander Vratis, a towering reptilian with scales like obsidian armor and eyes like burning coals, watched the lone human ship turn toward his fleet. He let out a low, mocking hiss. "Pathetic." His weapons officer rumbled in agreement. "1 human frigate, Commander. Shall we destroy it immediately?" Vratis bared sharp teeth in a cruel smile. "No, let it come. When we tear it apart, the refugees will understand their protectors are weak." The bridge crew laughed. Amy Richards sat rigid in her chair as the Liberty closed the distance. Her crew looked at her in disbelief. "Captain, we can't take 3 battleships." "I know," Amy cut in, "but we're not leaving those families to die." She touched the console at her side. The Liberty was small, but it wasn't ordinary anymore. Over the past weeks, Karathi engineers had reworked its quantum cores. Zelani biografts pulsed along its hull, repairing damage even in battle. Vexi counselors had trained the crew to fight with unshakable focus. When the Coalition fleet opened fire, beams of searing energy lit up space. And struck nothing. The Liberty's Karathi quantum shield absorbed the blasts and scattered the energy into harmless starlight. Gasps filled the bridge. "They can't hurt us," Amy whispered. Her gunners opened fire. Plasma cannons, upgraded by Karathi crystal harmonics, lanced across the void. The shots tore into a Coalition cruiser, shredding its shields like paper. Explosions ripped across its hull. Amy's heart pounded. For the first time in her career, she felt like David facing Goliath and winning. But 9 against 1 was still impossible odds. The Liberty shook violently as the enemy concentrated fire. The shields flickered. The biografts groaned under the strain, healing cracks as fast as they formed. Amy gritted her teeth. "Hold together," she muttered. "Just hold together." On Luna Station, Jake Morrison slammed a fist onto the console. "Get me Richards." Amy's face appeared on the screen, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, her eyes blazing. "Admiral, I'm holding them for now," she shouted over the roar of alarms. "But I can't last much longer." "Pull back, Amy," Jake ordered. "You can't do this alone." Her jaw tightened. "I'm not leaving those families, sir. Tell my mother I love her." The line cut. Jake cursed. Admiral Carter's voice came over the command channel. "We're moving. Full fleet jump to Mars now." The stars blurred as the Guardian and Earth's fleet surged into faster than light. On Mars, the Liberty's shields collapsed in a shower of sparks. Systems failed across the board. The ship groaned like a dying animal. "Captain," the engineer shouted, "we're done. We can't take another hit." Amy looked at the screen. New Coral City glowed beneath the surface of Mars, thousands of lives waiting in terror. She swallowed hard. Then we go down fighting. The Coalition flagship loomed before her, massive and unyielding. Amy set her course straight for it. If she was going to die, she would ram them head-on. Then the stars tore open. The Guardian and the Earth fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons blazing. But these weren't the same ships the Coalition remembered from 50 years ago. They were new, rebuilt with Karathi cores, Zelani biostructures, and Vexi guidance. At the center of the fleet was Jake Morrison's new flagship, the ESV Terra. Half ship, half living construct, its hull shimmered with organic armor and crystalline lattices. Its engines glowed with a pulse that felt alive. "This is Admiral Morrison to Coalition forces," Jake's voice thundered across every channel. "You are attacking civilians under Terra Alliance protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." On the Dreadfang, Vratus snarled. "Your rebellion ends today, human. We will burn your colonies, your refugees, and your Earth." Jake's reply was ice. "Wrong answer." The Terra opened fire. What followed was chaos. Coalition beams struck Alliance shields and vanished, absorbed into quantum crystals that turned the energy into fuel. Zelani bioships regenerated damage faster than enemy guns could inflict it. Vexi-guided fighters weaved through battle lines with flawless coordination, as if they shared a single mind. The Liberty, nearly destroyed, rallied as biograph sealed its hull. Amy Richards roared as her ship tore through another Coalition cruiser, vengeance burning in her veins. The impossible was happening. The Coalition, with all its power, was losing. On the bridge of the Dreadfang, Vratus's eyes widened as his ships fell one by one. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His science officer trembled. "Their technology is unknown. Our weapons make them stronger. We can't predict their movements. Commander, we're outmatched." Vratus's teeth bared in fury. "Retreat," he roared. "All ships retreat now." But it was too late. Alliance ships cut off their escape. Boarding parties teleported aboard the Dreadfang using Karathi quantum transporters. Within minutes, War Commander Vratus was dragged in chains before Jake Morrison. "You think this means anything, human?" Vratus hissed. "The Coalition will send 10,000 ships. They will drown you in fire." Jake looked at him coldly. "Then we'll show them what happens when you corner Earth's children." The war room aboard the ESV Terra was dark except for the glow of holograms that floated above the circular table. Fleet reports, intercepted transmissions, encrypted files, all pouring into Earth systems for the first time. Dr. Alina Vasquez stood at the head of the room, clutching a data tablet like it was poison. Her voice trembled as she addressed Admiral Jake Morrison, President Nancy Rodriguez, and Admiral Ben Carter. "We've broken the Coalition's encryption," she said. "We have access to their secure military archives and to records they never wanted anyone to see." She tapped a command. The holograms shifted. The room filled with images. Worlds sterilized from orbit, populations herded into camps, entire species erased. Gasps echoed from the officers present. This is genocide," Carter muttered, his weathered face pale. Alina nodded grimly. "The Zelani, the Karathi, the Vexi, they're not the first. The Coalition has been doing this for centuries. Any species that threatened their control, whether by being too peaceful, too advanced, or simply too honest, was exterminated." Rodriguez's hand covered her mouth as she watched a hollow of children screaming while Coalition soldiers dragged their parents away. The images shifted again, showing crystalline Karathi cities shattered into rubble, oceanic Zelani habitats poisoned beyond repair, Vexi diplomats executed for treason. The silence in the room was suffocating. Jake clenched his fists. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. "How many species?" Alina's eyes glistened. 53, documented, maybe more. No one moved for several heartbeats. Then Jake turned to Carter. "We can't keep this to ourselves. The galaxy needs to see this." Carter frowned. "If we broadcast this, we'll be declaring war against the Coalition openly. No going back." Jake's jaw tightened. "They've already declared war. This is about truth, and truth spreads faster than fleets." The decision was made. Hours later, across the galaxy, every comms channel lit up. Every holo display, every broadcast feed, every starship transmission, hijacked by Earth's quantum relay network, powered by Karathi crystal arrays. The galaxy saw the truth. They saw the extermination orders signed by coalition leaders. They saw files labeling entire species as contaminants. They saw refugee ships destroyed not for crimes, but for existing. And they felt it. The Vexi empaths, working in harmony, carried the raw emotions through the broadcast. Sorrow, fear, outrage burned into the hearts of every being who watched. Across the galaxy, silence reigned, then it shattered. On the industrial world of Mekar Prime, workers laid down their tools and refused to fuel coalition warships. On Daera, an entire fleet defected, their captains declaring loyalty to the Alliance of Earth. On the reptilian world of Zorvak, crowds stormed coalition outposts, chanting for freedom. The empire built on fear began to crack. Meanwhile, Earth and Luna groaned under the weight of refugees. Emergency shelters overflowed, supply lines strained, and still the ships came. Dr. Maria Santos walked through the Pacific floating cities, built hastily for the Zelani. Their coral-like architecture rose from the water like living towers. Children splashed joyfully for the first time in weeks, though their elders still bore the scars of exile. She stopped at a crystalline garden in the Australian outback. Karathi stood among glittering spires of quartz, their bodies glowing faintly as they absorbed minerals from the earth. Human engineers worked beside them, learning to reshape metals with their crystalline touch. "This is what the Coalition fears," Maria whispered. "Not weakness, not contamination, they fear potential." In orbit, Jake Morrison oversaw the transformation of Earth's fleet. Zelani biotech grew over human hulls, sealing wounds and sprouting adaptive plating. Karathi cores rewired ship systems into something new, something faster, stronger, smarter. Vexi empaths walked the decks, calming crews, sharpening instincts. The Alliance was being born. Yet Jake knew it wasn't enough. Because Lisa Wang's warning still haunted him. 10,000 coalition ships, against fewer than 1,000 of theirs. Numbers like that couldn't be beaten by bravery alone. War Commander Vratis, chained in a secure cell aboard the Terra, laughed when he overheard the numbers. "You've won a skirmish, human," he hissed at Jake when the Admiral visited. His reptilian eyes gleamed with cruel delight. "But you can't comprehend what's coming. 10,000 ships, dreadnoughts, carriers, battle stations the size of moons. They'll burn your Earth to ash, and then your precious refugees will scatter like dust." Jake stared at him. For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally he leaned close. "You still don't get it," Jake whispered. "We're not fighting alone. The species you threw away, they're with us now. Every ship you exile makes us stronger. Every crime you commit makes you weaker." Vratis's smile faltered. That night, President Rodriguez stood before the cameras again. This time, she didn't just speak to Earth. She spoke to the galaxy. 5 years ago, humanity joined the coalition, believing it to be a force for peace. But now we know the truth. They are not protectors, they are butchers. She raised a hand, her voice ringing like iron. "Earth will no longer bow to tyrants. We stand for freedom, for compassion, for every life cast aside. From this day forward, we declare the formation of the Terra Alliance. Any species who believes in dignity and hope will find a home here." Cheers erupted across refugee camps, across human colonies, across alien worlds long silenced by fear. The Terra Alliance was real, and the Coalition's stranglehold on the galaxy had just been broken. Cliffhanger end of Part 5. As the speech echoed through space, sensors lit up across Earth's defense grid. Coalition fleets were on the move, not a vanguard, not a probe. The main armada had just left hyperspace. 10,000 ships, heading straight for Earth. The stars above Earth turned black with war. From the command deck of the ESV Terra, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the largest armada in galactic history descend on humanity's home. 10,000 coalition ships spread across the void. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, a battle station the size of a moon at their center. Their formation blotted out starlight, a moving wall of death. Beside him, Lisa Wang whispered, "God help us." Jake's voice was steady, though his stomach felt like stone. "God's busy, it's just us now." Earth's defenses came alive. Orbital platforms shimmered with Karathi quantum shielding and Zelani biostructures that pulsed like living hearts. Swarms of Vexi-guided fighters launched from hidden bays, their pilots linked in empathic harmony, moving like a single organism. Across the oceans, Zelani cities pulsed with energy, sending living bioships into the sky. From Australia, the crystalline gardens erupted with light, Karatha-built ships rising like shards of a growing star. The Terra Alliance was ready, but they were still outnumbered 12-1. The first strike came fast. Coalition fleets surged forward, a tide of firepower. Plasma beams lanced across space, missiles streaked like burning comets, quantum disruptors rippled through the void. Earth shook under the assault. On the Terra's bridge, alarms blared. Admiral, Coalition fire concentrating on defense platforms Alpha 7 through Alpha 9. Jake's fists clenched. Those platforms protected half of Earth's southern hemisphere. Redirect the Zelani swarm, he ordered. Buy them time. 1,000 living ships responded, weaving between enemy fire. Coalition beams slammed into them, but instead of shattering, they absorbed the energy. Their biostructures swelled, glowing brighter, feeding on destruction. The Zelani ships grew larger with every hit. Impossible, whispered Lisa, staring at the tactical display. They're turning death into life. On the Coalition flagship, Supreme Commander Kethvar, a mantis-like giant clad in obsidian armor, watched with growing fury. How are they doing this? He demanded. His science officer trembled. Unknown technology, every strike feeds them. Our disruptors are useless. Our predictive algorithms fail against their coordination. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in rage. Then crush them with numbers, drown them in fire. Thousands of ships surged forward. On Mars orbit, Captain Amy Richards led a wing of upgraded human frigates. She shouted into comms, Squadron Delta on me, target their supply lines. Her fleet dove straight into the Coalition rear guard. Human frigates, rebuilt with Karathi cores, moved faster than their enemy could track. They cut into fuel convoys and carrier bays, detonating Coalition reserves in chain reactions that lit space like suns. Direct hits, her weapons officer cried. Amy smiled grimly. That's for New Coral City. On Earth, civilians watched the sky ignite. From New Geneva, crowds saw streaks of fire across the heavens. Children in refugee camps clutched their parents, while humans and aliens huddled together, praying to a dozen different gods. In the medical bays, Dr. Maria Santos worked tirelessly. Wounded poured in, human, Zelani, Karathi, Vexi. She stitched flesh beside crystal fractures, monitored alien biochemistry while barking orders at human nurses. Keep the Karathi supplied with copper. More saltwater tanks for the Zelani children. Stabilize that Vexi, his empathic overload will kill him. Outside, the war thundered on. Then the Coalition unleashed their ultimate weapon. The battle station, Dominator, charged a weapon aimed at Earth itself. A planet killer designed to crack worlds open like eggs. On the Terra, alarms shrieked. Admiral, Lisa shouted, they're charging the main gun. Jake's heart stopped. If that weapon fired, Earth would be gone. He slammed a fist onto the console. All ships, focus fire on the Dominator, now. Alliance fleets surged toward the massive station. Plasma cannons, crystal lances, bioenergy blasts, all hammered its shields. But the station was colossal. Its armor glowed red-hot but held. The weapon kept charging. In the crystalline gardens of Australia, Karathi leaders stood in a circle, their bodies glowing like suns. They had been silent until now, but as the Dominator's weapon reached its peak, they spoke as one. We must give them the crystal gift. They collapsed into themselves, shattered deliberately. Their fragments pulsed with quantum energy that surged into orbit. On the Terra, power readings spiked off the charts. Admiral, the engineer cried. The Karathi, they're sacrificing themselves. Their cores are fusing with our shield arrays. Jake's throat tightened. Don't waste it. Channel everything into the strike. The Terra fired. A single beam, brighter than a star, lanced through the void. It struck the Dominator's weapon port just as it reached full charge. The station erupted. The explosion blinded sensors, tearing the sky with light. Shockwaves rippled across the battlefield. When the glare faded, the Dominator was gone. Earth still lived. On the Coalition flagship, Kethvar slammed his claws onto the console. His army of 10,000 had been meant to crush the Alliance in minutes, but they were faltering, losing ships by the hundreds, defections spreading like rot. Because of truth, because of hope, because of humans. His mandibles clicked furiously. No more games, deploy every reserve, burn them all. On the Terra, Jake received the report. Admiral, Lisa said softly, they're sending everything, every last ship. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, voice hard as steel. Then we finish this. He activated fleet-wide comms. His voice echoed in every human ear, every refugee mind. Allied fleets, this is Admiral Morrison. Remember why we fight. Not for revenge, not for conquest, but so no child is ever called contaminant again. So no family drifts through space abandoned. So no species is told it is unworthy of life. Today we show the galaxy that compassion is stronger than fear, that unity is stronger than tyranny, that Earth and all her children will never bow. His final words were thunder. Alliance attack. The fleet surged as one. Cliffhanger, end of Part 6. As the final battle raged, a sudden burst of psychic energy swept across the battlefield. Vexy empaths screamed in unison, clutching their heads. Lisa spun to Jake, her face pale. Admiral, it's not just their fleet. The Coalition is unleashing something else, something we've never seen before. The stars rippled like water, and from the void emerged ships unlike any ever recorded, ancient, jagged, alive with unnatural energy. The Coalition had called in their darkest weapon. The stars rippled like torn fabric. From the bridge of the ESV Terra, Jake Morrison stared at the void as ships unlike any he had ever seen slid into existence. Their hulls were jagged, black, pulsing with veins of crimson energy. They weren't built. They looked grown, as though the galaxy itself had given birth to nightmares. The sensors screamed warnings. Lisa Wang's face turned pale. Admiral, these aren't Coalition designs. They're older, much older. Dr. Elena Vasquez whispered the word none of them wanted to hear. Devourer relics. The room fell silent. The Coalition had unearthed weapons from the galaxy's darkest past. Ancient warships built by a race long dead, creatures who had once consumed entire star systems. Jake's jaw clenched. So that's their ace. When fear and lies fail, they turn to monsters. The first of the black ships opened fire. Crimson beams ripped through space, bending reality around them. An Alliance frigate vanished in a burst of light, its crew erased in an instant. The battlefield erupted into chaos. On the Coalition flagship, Supreme Commander Kethvar watched with grim satisfaction as the relics cut swaths through the Alliance. These are weapons of gods, he hissed to his crew. Let the humans see what true power looks like. But even his own officers looked uneasy. The relics pulsed as though alive, their weapons burning indiscriminately. One stray beam obliterated a Coalition destroyer caught in its path. Commander, his science officer stammered, they're not fully under our control. Kethvar's mandibles clicked with rage. Then we control them with fear, push them forward, let them devour our enemies first. The Alliance was breaking. Amy Richards' frigate Liberty dodged fire as two relic ships pursued her. Her upgraded shields flickered, barely holding. Captain, her helmsman shouted, they're faster than anything we've seen. Amy's hands gripped the console. She could see New Coral City below, Zelani children watching the skis. If those relics broke through, the settlement would be ash. No retreat, she said fiercely. Divert all power to weapons, we're taking one of them with us. Before the order could be executed, a Zelani bioship dove between the Liberty and the relics. It absorbed their beams, glowing brighter and brighter, until it burst in a selfless explosion that crippled both enemy vessels. Amy stared in stunned silence, tears burning her eyes. They're dying for us, she whispered. On the Terra, Jake's knuckles whitened on the railing. He turned to Dr. Santos, who had rushed to the command deck. Can we fight these things? Maria's face was grim. Not with weapons, they feed on energy. The more we shoot, the stronger they'll get. Then how do we kill them? Jake demanded. Maria hesitated, then glanced at the Karathi envoy Zar, whose crystalline body flickered with light. Zar's voice was like a low hum. We do not destroy them, Zar said. We transform them. Jake frowned. Explain. These relics were made to devour. But with enough resonance, Karathi crystal, Zelani biotech, Vexi empathy, we can overwrite their hunger, change their purpose. Lisa's eyes widened. You're saying we can reprogram them with compassion. Zar's crystals pulsed. Yes, but it will require everything, every ship, every soul united in one frequency. Jake looked around the bridge. He knew what it meant. It was madness. It was impossible. And it was their only chance. The order went out. Across the battlefield, Alliance ships linked through Karathi quantum cores. Vexi empaths spread their network, binding pilots and crews into a single pulse of shared emotion. Zelani ships released waves of bioenergy that spread like music across the void. For the first time in history, humans, aliens, refugees, all thought and felt as one. Jake felt it wash over him. The grief of the Vexi, the determination of the Karathi, the hope of the Zelani, the stubborn defiance of humanity. Together, they projected it into the relics. Not fear, not hate, but unity, compassion, belonging. The black ships hesitated. Their crimson glow flickered, dimmed, shifted. One by one, their jagged forms reshaped. Crimson veins turned to gold. Their weapons went silent. And then they turned on the coalition. Supreme Commander Kethvar roared in disbelief as his ultimate weapon betrayed him. No, he bellowed, mandibles flailing. Obey me, obey. But the relics, now pulsing with golden light, tore into the coalition fleet with merciless precision. Dreadnoughts split in half. Carriers burned. The tide turned in an instant. On the Terra, Jake's voice thundered through the comms. All ships press the attack. This is our moment. The Alliance surged forward, crushing what remained of the coalition fleet. Thousands of ships surrendered. Hundreds defected. Others were destroyed in fire. And at the center, the flagship Dreadfang found itself surrounded. Jake, Lisa, and Zar stood face to face with Kethvar on the Dreadfang's shattered bridge. The once mighty commander's armor was cracked, his eyes wild with fury. You think you've won? He spat. You've unleashed forces you cannot control. The galaxy will drown in chaos. Jake stepped forward, his voice calm, resolute. No, the galaxy will heal, because for the first time its people stand together, and fear no longer rules us. Kethvar lunged, Jake drew his sidearm and fired once. The commander fell, his reign of terror ended. The war was over. The coalition fleet was shattered, its leaders disgraced. Worlds that had cowered under its shadow now rose in defiance, joining the Terra Alliance. 5 years later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt orbital city above Earth. The skies were no longer filled with warships, but with vessels of trade, exploration, and hope. Below, New Geneva bustled with humans, Zelani, Karathi, Vexi, and dozens of others who had once been exiled. Children of every species played together in the parks, their laughter echoing through streets lined with banners of the Galactic Republic, the new government born from unity. Dr. Maria Santos had saved 23 species from extinction. Amy Richards now commanded the largest peace fleet in the Republic. Lisa Wang was its chief diplomat, forging bonds between worlds once divided. And Jake Morrison, he was tired, but when he looked out at the stars, he no longer saw darkness, he saw home. Zar, glowing faintly beside him, spoke softly. Do you regret your choice, Admiral? Jake smiled faintly. No, because it wasn't just Earth's choice, it was all of ours together. The galaxy had once cast its refugees into the void, but humanity had said yes, and in that single act of compassion, Earth had lit a fire that would burn across the stars forever.